Very important first, and I speak, for those of you who don't know me, as a nominally successful capitalist in that I run a company that's turning over more than £100 million. And my experience based on that is that capitalism is broken. It is suicidally dysfunctional. It is destroying, paradoxically, itself, but it is also destroying the future for our children and grandchildren. Now, I want to give you two examples of why I think that is the case, and then I'll talk a bit about solutions. Example number one is climate change. How can this system be right if we are on a road to 4, maybe 6 degrees of global warming? That is going to wipe out civilization as we know it. We are going to lose the ability to feed ourselves and to provide drinking water. You know the rest of it, that's why you're here. The second reason is broken is the financial crisis, and what we've learned from the financial crisis about the system's ability to defend itself. One of the biggest scandals of our modern times is that since 2008, bankers have paid themselves more in bonuses since the crisis than they've even given to their shareholders in return. How is that possible? How have we collectively and our elected leaders allowed that to happen? The system barrels on, primed again for another crash. The last one nearly brought down the world economy. The next one could bring down the world economy. It's not just the financial services industry now, it's the energy industry that is priming the rotten, broken system of modern capitalism to do this kind of thing to us. This is why what you're doing here is so important, and we need you to keep going. You have so much more support. Anyone who studies these issues knows how much support you have. I come from the green energy industries. Lots of people support your basic message. Capitalism as we know it is not working properly. It's bringing democracy down with it. And its death throes, it will give us fascism if we allow it to do so. And that is why you must keep going, and you must keep this movement going. You connect to the outside world. So many other people believe what you're standing here for, the generality of it. There may be times when you see our increasingly paramilitary police force outnumbering you here. Don't worry about that. You have far more support than you would probably guess most nights here at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I just want to take you to 3 places now, talking about solutions and the problems a little bit more as well.
Abolish money! Abolish money!
So first I want to take you to a village in Africa, then an oil field in Kazakhstan, then a low-income housing development in, if you'll forgive me, Slough. So African villages right now. My company Solar Century, with 5% of its profits, would that all companies give 5% of their profits for this kind of thing, set up a charity called Solar Aid that sells solar lanterns in Africa, in 4 countries. And in 4 years, we've grown this thing so fast, we're now the biggest retailer of solar lanterns in Africa, and we're selling one every 40 seconds now. There are 54 countries in Africa, but just out of these 4, that's what we've been able to do. Now, what does a solar lantern do? And forgive me, this is small scale, but it moves to the big scale. A solar lantern kills oil. It kills oil use as kerosene for lighting. Every single lantern that we sell, and all the profits, 100% of the profits, go back to the mission, to the charity to keep the thing going. Every lantern that we sell saves the average African household 20% of their annual income. Where does that go? It goes on school books, it goes on seeds, it goes on medicines, it goes on the things that improve people's lives in Africa, whilst getting rid of oil. And why does this work? It works because solar lanterns are cheaper than buying kerosene. You can pay back the cost of a solar lantern in just 2 weeks on the savings from kerosene. It's a no-brainer sale. We should be doing this for development reasons and climate change reasons as well, but the average African is buying these things because it's going to save them money and it's going to improve the quality of their lives. The kids get an hour of extra homework a night. The literacy rates go up. The grades are going up in schools where these things are commonly used. So what I think we have here, in my mind, is a kind of a microcosm for what we could do further up the chain with fossil fuels. If it's this easy to get rid of oil in Africa for lighting, why is it going to be so difficult to get rid of it further up the chain? Sorry, can't hear. I missed that out. It allows them to charge their phones as well, so that's another benefit of it. Okay, so now let's go to Kazakhstan. And if you're not following this drama, it's worth following, because this is like the cutting edge of the oil industry. It's one of the biggest oil fields in the world there in Kazakhstan. It's called Kashagan, or as it's known in Shell, Cash All Got. They discovered it in 2000. They thought they'd bring it on stream, delivering oil to the world market in 2004 at a cost of $10 billion. Now in 2014, it still hasn't come on. And the capital cost of developing this oil field is running at $50 billion. That's, those of you who have pension funds, that will include some of your pension money. This shows what's going on at the frontier with the oil industry. In many places, these guys are in the process of bankrupting themselves. Fracking is a perfect example of this. In America, we hear about the shale boom. We hear less often about how the entire industry is losing money hand over fist. It's throwing away billions, drilling at a cost that's higher than the cost they can actually sell the gas and oil. I mean, and this has been going on for years now, and it's getting really acute to the point where finally investors are beginning to notice. This is the thing that George Osborne wants to import into Britain. So there's an element of craziness to all this, and you might think, if it's true, why do they do it? It's not a sensible thing to do. Exactly so. They do it because they can borrow money to keep doing it. They're oil and gas men, and they mostly are men, and that's why the whole suicidal system keeps going, building up this bubble of oil and gas that they can't ultimately burn anyway if we're going to survive climate change, and actually producing this stuff at more than the cost that they can sell it for. And right now they have a huge crisis because the price of oil is going down, and everything I just said to you was predicated on $100 oil. It's now going down towards 80 and may even go below. So that's another example of the problem. The final place, and then I'll shut up, the final place I want to take you is to Slough, where if you go to a little place called Greenwood Way, you will see a development of 12 houses that Solar Century did with Scottish and Southern, one of the big 6 energy companies, for their workers. And so they've got solar roof tiles, and those roof tiles provide all the electricity that the development needs, all of it, even in cloudy Britain, and a lot more besides. Enough to charge the battery car that the community uses to go down to the supermarket. And you might say, okay, what about the heating in the winter? And all the heating is done by renewable energy technologies on that site as well. So this is zero emissions. It's well beyond zero emissions. We did this 5 or 6 years ago, and it was pretty expensive, but it showed what can be done. And here's the thing now. If you listen to the analysts who are studying the incredible cost down of these solar technologies and the battery technologies now, what analysts at places like UBS, the biggest private bank in the world, okay, I know we should not always believe what these guys tell us, but this is what the industry is telling us as well. You know, by 2020, we're going to be able, those of us who can afford it, are going to be able to have solar roofs on our homes, electric vehicles parked in our yards, banks of batteries in our home to do everything we need electricity-wise in the building. We'll be able to get the capital back in 6 to 8 years for what it costs to buy that, and we will be making 7% a year pre-tax, better by miles than our pensions, on that thing we can do. And this, UBS and the others say, is going to change the face of the energy industry. So how does it tie into capitalism and democracy? Here's how it does, I think. These technologies and strategies lend themselves to community. They lend themselves to people power. You may know that in Germany right now, almost half the renewable energy infrastructure, the kit, is owned by ordinary people and communities. That is a big slice of the future. That can grow. So too can the use of our own money. We need to take money out of the hands of the banks and the creatures of the capital markets increasingly and put it into our own hands. So crowdfunding, green bonds, all the rest of it. We have huge ability to control our own capital more. And here lies the seeds of hope, because the two big problems I talked about with capitalism, climate change and our failure to rein in the banks, both these things we can fix, but here's the bottom line. We're not going to be able to fix it with the version of modern capitalism, with this version of democracy that we have here. We're going to have to fix it with an evolved, more civilized, more appropriate model for the 21st century. And that's what you're all about here. That's what lots of people are about in the green energy industries and everyone else who cares about these issues that have brought you here today. And so more strength to your arm. Keep it up, and let's see it all the way through to the time that we actually begin to win. Thank you for listening.